Hey guys, before we start episode 581 with our good friend Dr. Gerald Smith, I wanted to let you know that all of our shows are now live. So if you want to catch the live show, ask your questions, interact with other people, so many cool people in the chat rooms. And what's cool too is we kind of do like a post-show wrap-up, which is always kind of fun too. So we get to kind of talk about the guest, with the guest not being there, and have a good time in the chat room, and it's a lot of fun. So if you guys want to catch the live shows, they are every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. And if you go to extremehealthradio.com, you can see a bunch of different tabs, and you can find out our upcoming guests. You can find out when the shows are live, and you can interact, and there's links on there for everything. So it's every morning at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. And before we start, I wanted to let you guys know that this show is brought to you by the Extreme Health Academy. If you haven't checked it out yet, I'm telling you guys, this is the premier place. I don't know of anybody else online in the natural health space that's doing something to this level like we're doing. This has been a labor of love and something I've wanted to do, a dream of mine actually, since 2003. And inside the academy, we give you all the tools that you will need to take your health to the next level. So if you are currently dealing with any kind of health condition or health challenge, or you just can't get on top of something, or maybe you're like me, you want to take your health to the next level, have more energy, have better hormones, have longer lifespan, all of those things. Every single month we're doing monthly courses on the different diseases and body systems. We're doing quick win videos. We're doing in-depth protocols. We're doing weekly Q&A mastermind sessions with Dr. John Bergman. We're doing weekly members hangouts where we all get to hang out and answering each other's questions. It's an amazing place. And I'm telling you guys that you really want to join the Extreme Health Academy. So I want to give you a little discount. If you go to extremehealthacademy.com and enter in the code EHR14, you will get a free 14-day trial. So that's for you to check out and make friends and introduce yourself and start consuming the content that's going to help take your health to the next level. So go check it out, extremehealthacademy.com. And this episode is episode 581, despite what I say elsewhere. It is episode 581. All right, let's get on with the show with Dr. Gerald Smith. Well, this show is going to be very, very exciting. We are super, super excited to have Dr. Gerald Smith on the show again. You know, it's been 4 years since we had him on the show. Is that right? 2012? Yeah, it's 2018 right now. It's been 4 years since he was on our show. I think he was on episode number 17 back in the day. And he's just an awesome guy, and just reminded of his work recently. And I just figured, you know what? We need to have Dr. Smith back on the show, because a lot of times people don't listen to those old archives, and so those are some really, really good shows back in the day that we did. But Dr. Gerald Smith was on episode, I think, 17, I said. This is going to be episode 580, and we're going to talk a lot about post-concussion syndrome. He's had some really, really great successes, and he was sharing with me before we started the recording about some technologies that he is just blown away by, some new technologies in terms of how those can affect our health. And I think we're going to touch on autoimmune disease and cancer, and it's going to be a great, great show. Dr. Smith, if you're not familiar with him, wow, where do I start with him? He runs ICNR.com, and he's been at this for, decades. And he's certified by the World Organization for Natural Medicine. He is with the Knights Hospitaller, which was an organization set up, I think, around the year 1050, if I'm not mistaken. He lectures at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. He's written dozens of books, some of which include the internet. Let's see, what am I saying here? What is the books? The books. Headaches Aren't Forever, Alternative Treatments for Conquering Chronic Pain, Reversing Cancer, A Survivor's Guide for Understanding the Nature of Cancer, and it just goes on from there. And he's really, really an awesome practitioner, and we're excited to have him back on the show. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for taking the time again.
It was my pleasure, Justin, and I'm really excited about sharing some really breakthrough technology with your listeners.
Oh, it's great. Do you realize it's been 4 years since you've been on our show?
No, I can't believe it, but it is.
It's just time flies, right? When you're having fun and trying to help people, right?
Well, that's the name of the game, and the answers are all out there. You just have to keep flipping the rocks.
Mm-hmm. Now, am I mistaken in thinking that did you just get back from doing a conference in Portugal, or am I thinking about somebody else?
I was in Italy, Arezzo, at a integrative oncology conference there.
That's right. And when did you go there?
That was in March. Basically, I was invited by a good personal friend of mine who's a board-certified orthopedic surgeon over in Italy, and he wanted to expose my breakthrough technology amongst conventional and integrative oncologists, and it was pretty mind-blowing. While I was there, just to divert for a little second here, the sponsor of the conference was legally blind, 83 years old with severe cataract, and I had full spectrum light sent over from the Italian division of the company, and 20 minutes with the light shining on his eyes. He couldn't speak English, but the interpreter said he started to cry, and he said, I could see the stripes on Dr. Smith's shirt. So,
Wow.
This technology is non-invasive. It's just wonderful. But anyway, that was just a little sidebar that I was pretty exciting.
Jeez, that's amazing. How long did you say this guy had been blind for?
Oh, years.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So that was, man. So, if my memory is correct, most of these doctors were not alternative. Is that correct?
Well,
is that right?
Some were. But the bulk was they were kind of like fringe integrative approach. They're mainly focusing on the mechanics, the robotic surgeries and different types of chemo and stuff like that. And I kind of blew their circuits because I showed them, cases where what we're doing is taking the pathology slide that the patient, gets from the biopsy or surgery, and energetically testing the slide to define the initiators. So to give you, for example, we had a woman who had lung cancer. They cut the tip of her right lung off. She refused chemo and any other conventional therapy, and 6 months later the cancer came back in the left lung. And she said, I'd rather die than go through that, surgery again. So she brought in the pathology slide from the hospital. I energetically tested it and defined a pesticide, cytomegalovirus, and mercury in the cancerous tissue. So we put her on a specific food-based supplement program to go after those three major initiators. Well, and then plus we're using scalar energy and what they call a cyberscan system from Germany that does in-depth diagnostics and also treats with frequencies. The bottom line is 6 months later, her cancer totally disappeared.
Wow. And did she do any other modalities during those 6 months?
Nope.
Really?
Just what I had mentioned to you, the nutritional approach to resolve those three initiators, plus scalar energy technology from back in the 30s that Nikola Tesla discovered, and cyberscan technology from Germany that's 100 years ahead of what medicine's doing. They don't even know that they don't know.
Oh my gosh! So the cyberscan is more diagnostic kind of an idea, or is that a treatment?
Both.
It's
both.
Both.
Justin, it's both. In 10 seconds, it'll take a holographic energy pattern from the palm of your hand, and then it has a database now of 135,000 electromagnetic signatures. So you guide the software to triage through the different areas, whether it be through cancer, through metabolic stuff, through nerves, muscles, nutrition, and it picks up the top 2-3% of the stressors in your body.
That's
and
amazing.
Then it can put these frequencies, the healing frequencies, onto a magnetic strip on a little credit card size device that you wear, and it basically treats you.
So it's kind of like, in the sense that homeopathy, well, not necessarily homeopathy, but I guess in some of those energy devices, you can transmute the energy into a substance like water and drink the water, but this is more transmuting into something that someone could wear, like a card or something.
Yeah, basically, it's like a credit card, and it has a magnetic strip, so you can put about 150 frequencies in there, and then it basically wakes up your body to the stressors, and then your body's own immune system then resolves the problem.
That's so amazing. So what do you think was going on with this lady with the lung cancer? You think that she was exposed to those glyphosates or some of these chemicals, and then that set off this whole cascade?
Yeah, it's they call it epigenetics. We all have a genetic makeup that's passed on to us, but the exposure of various toxins, xenobiotics, heavy metals, whatever, it just disrupts the physiology of the cells, and then they go haywire.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. It's interesting how was this lady a smoker or
no?
That's fascinating.
But you don't have to smoke today because the air is so polluted from the mercury for over 40 tons being spewed out from coal burning power plants.
Mm-hmm.
We still have the radiation coming over from Fukushima from March of 2011.
Right. And then you also have, chemtrails, tire dust from freeways, airport pollution from planes flying over.
And the big thing that's not being really addressed on the 11 o'clock news is the EMFs, the electromagnetic radiations and frequencies. And I think that's going to be, a big underlying factor with all kinds of disease processes.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we've done a lot of shows on this, and everyone is saying the same thing, and especially with the 5G coming up where, they're going to have to put, it's such high frequencies that they're going to have to put, increase their tower production, by tenfold in order to have these high frequencies. Cause they're talking about people being able to do with 5G, like, those self-driving cars and, these Netflix videos people download. I mean, all this stuff requires so much bandwidth that, man, it's going to require it's just going to bathe the entire population in this blanket of EMF smog, isn't it?
Well, we already have it, but it's just not as pervasive. But all I can tell you is that people who have had issues resolved and then they get back into that environment. Well, people don't realize it. Like Steve Jobs, for example, he had pancreatic cancer. He was actually cured, I think, 3 times. He went to Austria, I believe, or one of these other third world countries. But then where did he go back to work? At Apple, which is silicon, environment with EMFs and Wi-Fi, and that's what brings the cancer back. You can cure it, whether it be dementia or Alzheimer's or you name it. But once you get back into that EMF environment, it just disrupts the whole physiology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so pervasive, and it affects us so much more than I think we even understand. And it's getting to the point where I'm wondering, is there anywhere you can go? Like, I was listening to a podcast the other day with this practitioner talking about this subject, and he was saying that there's places in Europe that don't use the ground of the earth as a conduit to put back dirty electricity back to the companies, and so Europe is way more clean than America. But I'm just wondering, is there anywhere we can go to get away from this stuff?
Well, I'm sure there's some isolated areas in Montana.
Yeah, that's true. That would be beautiful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I have a good friend that they're seriously thinking of relocating there.
Really?
But,
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy today what's going on. I mean, I turn off my Wi-Fi when I go to bed and actually got hardwired to, circumvent the EMFs flying around the house.
Mm-hmm. I know, we do that too. And what's fascinating is that, we turn our Wi-Fi off. We don't have it hardwired yet to the house, that's our next step. But, it's just fascinating where, when I listen to something on a podcast, when I'm working out, I will typically download the episode to my little device so that I don't have to have the EMF on. But I mean, I'm picking up signals like all the way out into the front street of our neighborhood, even that on houses that are neighboring houses to ours. And like, I wonder, does turning off our own Wi-Fi I think the average American has like 7 or 8 wireless devices. Like, is that really helping, do you think?
Well, yeah, whatever number of devices you can, terminate, you're definitely going to, reduce your exposure. I mean, I had a patient from London who literally would be waking up at 2:00 every morning, and he basically tracked it down to his neighbor's Wi-Fi. He had to get a Faraday cage around his bed, which was basically found an engineer in Switzerland who had the same problem, and he basically had cloth with silver thread woven into it and hung around his bed. It cost him like $2,000 for the curtain, but after he hung it, he was able to sleep through the night. But he couldn't practically have his neighbors turn off their Wi-Fi, but he was just inundated all around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. My wife and I are pregnant now, and we're going to have twins in about 2 months, I think, at the end of June. And when they're going to be sleeping in our room, I'm wondering if we should get a setup similar to that.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, you don't want to have the fetuses exposed to the Wi-Fi because you can have an increase in chance of getting autistic children.
Yeah,
that's all documented.
Yeah, I've heard about that. A lot of people are saying that it's connected to the glyphosate and then the Wi-Fi, and then you combine those things when they get combined with the vaccines, the synergistic effect of those three of them. But who knows? I mean, it's probably everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, people don't realize even dental work. So, excuse me, for example, you have implants or you have gold crowns. Well, they act as antennae pulling in the EMFs into your jawbone and causing dehydration.
Is it true that some people with some of those silver metal fillings can actually pick up signals and they hear things in their head? Is that actually true?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you basically have a little radio station going on. I mean, as a child, I'm a little bit older than you, but I remember having a crystal set where it would take a little needle and you would, touch it at different parts of the crystal, and then with a little, headphone set, get a radio station. So, wow. A mercury filling with multiple metals in there is actually like a little crystal set.
My goodness. That's one of the best things I ever did. My wife and I went to a really great dentist out in Texas, Dr. Stuart Nunley, I think around 2010, because prior to that, I'd been learning about cavitations and mercury fillings, and I had wisdom teeth removed in 2000, but then in 2010, I thought, all right, well, let's just start somewhere. I can't, at the time, I couldn't afford to get everything done. So I said, all right, let's just start with the mercury fillings, and 2010. And that was one of the best things I've ever done, getting rid of those mercury fillings.
Well, they leak out 24/7. And in fact, I'm looking at a case now where a retired dentist had basal cell carcinoma on the side of her nose. And she, for a year, was doing coffee enemas and wheatgrass juice and acupuncture and, all good modalities, but it wasn't getting at the root cause. And the root cause was when she came to me and I energetically tested her, she had mercury exactly at the site of the cancer. And it took like a year and 3 months to detox her. And she went through 3 major waves of detoxification with breaking out in rashes over her thyroid, her thymus, her chest. And at the end of the year and 3 months, the cancer just healed up. It just disappeared.
Wow. How big was it, the cancer?
Probably the size of maybe a dime.
Wow.
On the size of her nose, yeah.
And that was, you think, pretty much correlated with the mercury in her mouth?
Well, her exposure as a dentist, a biological dentist, she was cutting things out.
Uh-huh.
And, you get exposed to it. So, the stress of working as a dentist, increases cortisol, and cortisol is a catabolic hormone. So it has a tendency of tearing down tissue. And, epigenetics, exposed to formaldehyde or other chemicals, in the environment, fluoride, it all combines and wreaks havoc.
That's amazing. It really is amazing what's going on in the teeth and what people don't realize, how important that is. There was a doctor we had on the show years ago, Dr. Dowling, I think, Dr. Bob Dowling.
Yeah, I know Bob.
Yeah. And I may be, we've done like 500 shows, so I may be wrong about this, but I think it was him that was telling us that, he has these X-rays showing, direct correlation. Like you can see lines in the X-ray going from a woman's tooth to her breast cancer tumor. Is that correct?
Well, yeah.
Have you seen that?
The key is this. Dr. Dowling showed statistically that a woman with breast cancer, for example, in 93% of the cases has a root canal on the same side as the breast cancer. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the anatomy of the body, the lymphatic system, which is your drainage system of the body, takes everything from the mouth down through the thyroid, the thymus, your heart, and then the breast. The breasts have an extensive network of lymphatic channels. And so today, with all this fancy dentistry, you're increasing, your probability of putting these toxins down into the breast and the heart and thyroid. I see a lot of underactive thyroid cases in my practice for that very reason. Mm-hmm. They have a root canal that fails, and then they extract it, and then they do an implant. So now you have titanium, and then you have a gold crown. You have a galvanic reaction, plus the infections are still in the jawbone, and the poisons are just draining down through all those organs. And at some point in time, it reaches that critical mass, and then things go haywire.
It's interesting, too, the way you describe that, because I'm just thinking about women that I've seen around, and it's like a perfect storm. Like you think about they've had probably cavitations and or mercury, and then you have those toxins going down into the lymphatics and getting stuck in the breast, and then they're wearing bras that decrease lymphatic flow, and then on top of that, you'll see women carrying the cell phones right on their breast, and it's like, man, no one tells them, or this isn't common knowledge, but you see it all the time. It's crazy.
Oh, 100% craziness, and it's getting worse. With the 5G, the signal is going to be so much stronger. Uh-huh. And then, the environment is getting more toxic all the time. I even found glyphosate in my own body, and I'm finding in a lot of the cancer patients that I see, glyphosate is an issue.
Yeah, that is amazing. I've heard the same thing, that glyphosate it destroys the gut and screws up the sulfur interactions in the body, and it has such a cascading effect, and we're exposed to it. I think you can get it even just breathing the air outside, right? If it's off-gassing off your neighbor's yard and things.
Sure. If someone's spraying it, even 2 miles away, look, they found DDT in the penguins in Antarctica, and they never sprayed up in there, right?
Oh my gosh! So
there, so it gets into the jet stream.
So what did you do? You did a blood test, and you found glyphosate in your blood?
No, I did CyberScan, and CyberScan picks up the frequency signals. See, the blood tests to me are antiquated. It's obsolete, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
Because it's a window of that second that's passing by your needle that you're drawing the blood.
Okay.
But the CyberScan literally is reading the frequency signature of that chemical, and it picks it up in the body, whereas your traditional diagnostic systems are just, they're too limiting, and they're not giving you a comprehensive picture of what's going on in that patient.
Is a CyberScan, does it hail from Europe as its origin?
Yeah, Germany.
That's right. Okay, yeah, there's a guest on our show, Meridian Grace, and we've been over to her house over in Texas, and I think she had one of these CyberScans, and she just loved it, and it's a diagnostic tool that you can use. Could someone have one for themselves?
Well, actually, I have 2 units. I have one at the office and one at home, and my secretary runs the ones at the office. But give you an example, about 2.5 years ago, I was lecturing in Moscow, and I came down with the flu, and I was literally dripping, clear fluid from my nose, and I had to fly over to Seoul, Korea, and do a 4-day program right after that. And so I texted my secretary to beam me over the frequencies for flu and influenza, and in 2 days I was 98% cured. So basically, it's like if I dial your cell number, your phone rings. Well, when you do your capturing of your holographic energy pattern from the individual patient, it's also capturing your DNA code. So when you broadcast the signals via scalar waves, which literally travel multiple times faster than the speed of light, so you could be anywhere on this globe and get treated by broadcasting these frequencies, but it locks onto your DNA code, so it's not going to affect anyone else but you.
So this
I believe this is ET technology, Justin.
Oh my God, I know. It sounds amazingly crazy. And I'm looking at the page on your website, the Cyberscan philosophy. You got a whole page. I'll put a link to it if people are more interested in this. But again, is this something that someone could get for their own home?
Well, it's an investment. It's about $35,000. So
okay. Well, there are a lot of people.
Investment, but it's like Doc in the box. I mean, when you think about all the insurance that you pay, and you go to emergency rooms and all they're doing is irradiating you and throwing drugs at you, and they're really not, getting to the root cause of the problem. I mean, that's my mantra: is like, what's the splinter? What's the initiator?
Mm-hmm. So, with all of your experience, I'm curious, what do you think is the root cause of all disease? Do you think it's a mental, spiritual origin, and then it trickles down into the physics and the electrons, and then down into the biology? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I wrote a paper back in 1982 called The Physiologic Adaptive Range, and it looks at the cranium, it looks at the dental component, it looks at the pelvis structurally, then the physiology of the body, and then also the psychology of the body. So, I mean, Hammer's work from Germany proved unequivocally that emotional traumas cause scarring in the brain and calcifications in the brain, which literally could trigger off a cancer in a specific area. In fact, he did well over 10,000, readings from CAT scans and could tell you exactly where the cancer was by the location of the calcification in the patient's brain.
Wow. So he would be able to determine the location of the cancer cells based on that.
Yeah, well, he's 100% correct because they threw him in jail for a year and a half over in Spain.
I know. Anyone that makes it on the Quack Watch, I think, all right, they're doing good work.
Absolutely. They don't want the truth out there because it's cutting into the big pharma's pocketbook, and that's what it's all about.
I have to say, I have been absolutely loving this product by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. If you want to listen to the interview we did with Tristan, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/127. And Qigong is a great way to de-stress the body. And as you know, there's a huge component to disease caused by stress. And stress is a huge factor in how we live our lives and the amount of energy we have and the amount of vitality we have. And so, Dr. Shade, what do you think about Qigong?
People come to me and they're really sick and they got this blown out neurological system and all this toxicity. And I tell them, you need to do Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do these things that settle down and restore your neurology because it puts together all the parts. It puts you back into that state where you can start to detoxify. And so I highly, highly recommend all that.
And what about you, Kit Campbell? What do you think about Qigong? Do you like it as well?
Qigong is amazing. And the reason that I believe it to be amazing is everything here is energy. That is a scientific fact, if there ever is one. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually drawing energy into your body. Your intention, whatever your intention is behind any action, will determine the level of energy, type of energy that you absorb into your body. So your intention behind is very important, just like thought. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually bringing energy in and you're bringing out the stuff that might be a bit stale. With Tai Chi, it's totally different. The energy runs underneath the skin because it's more of a martial. This is the Chinese understanding, by the way. It's more of a martial art. So Qigong is very, very good for bringing that energy into the body and just fantastic.
If you're interested in picking up this Qigong course by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar, go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. That's QIGONG. And you can learn more about it. There's a great video on that page, and you can learn more about it on that page. And I highly, highly recommend this product. I love it myself, so go ahead and check that out. extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. I know, it's so interesting, going through this pregnancy with my wife right now and getting input from different people. It's so clear to me that it's about money. It's a big business and it's about money. And no wonder why they would put a guy like that in jail. And a lot of people would say, well, they put a guy like that in jail because he's practicing medicine and we've, trademarked that term. But really it's like, it's not their desire to help people. It's really just protecting a brand. It's so obvious.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, as a dentist, I could not practice this way. So I literally have a degree in natural medicine. So they had no jurisdiction over my nutritional, my cranial, all the natural approaches that I take. And because, it's a kangaroo court once you get inside their confines of their little legal system. Mm-hmm. So this way, any practitioner that may be listening, if they want to do this, exciting new technology work, you have to do it through an independent license to practice natural medicine, and you're covered internationally.
Now, is that where your Knights Hospitaller comes in?
Well, it's part of the program, but the International Organization for Natural Medicine, their home base up in Toronto, Sheila McKenzie is the woman that runs it. She's a real sweetheart. And, she trademarked the name Natural Medicine so nobody could steal it from our group. Yeah, because, even naturopathic doctors, they want to be real doctors, and they're going to get swept in, like a Hoover vacuum cleaner, pulling up dust into their little network. But, they're going to lose a lot of their rights and be confined. But doing natural medicine is just so much more exciting because you can cure pretty much anything, other than a broken leg, for example, but with natural remedies.
Now, it's interesting. I see more and more I go into CVS and we might buy some, the Dr. Teal's magnesium salt to take a salt bath. And you go in there and you see advertisements for the flu shot and you see advertisements for this, that, and the other. But then you also see these, the use of these terms like wellness, or you go to a hospital and you see wellness this, wellness that. And like you're talking about with the trademarking of the terms, like they're starting to get in on that game. And then you start realizing that a lot of the supplement companies are owned by big pharma companies. And it's really bizarre how it's all coming together, isn't it?
Well, it's smoke and mirrors because, their definition of wellness is, 180 degrees of what mine is. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't know what wellness is if they fell on it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just such a scam because, getting a vaccine, if you would look at the adjuvants in these vaccines, and plus the fact with the whole flu, it was a scam. The CDC even admitted that it was like maybe 10% effective. They basically pull these viruses out of a hat 6 months before when they do the preparations. And the other thing that's pretty disturbing is Judy Mikovits, was a whistleblower for I think it was NIH. She was doing research with about 20 other researchers back in 1990, and they discovered that the chicken embryos on which they were growing these vaccines were also transmitting retroviruses into the vaccine, unbeknownst to the producers, and they blew the whistle on it, and, just because she was so honest and everything, they threw her in jail and bankrupted her.
Oh, my gosh.
She wrote a book. She wrote a book describing the whole process. It was called Plague.
Wow.
And this is what people think that they're doing good by getting a vaccine, but there's formaldehyde as an adjuvant in vaccine, which is a known carcinogen. Uh-huh. There's chicken embryos. There's peanut oil. There's polysorbitol 80. There's thimerosal, which is ethyl mercury. You wonder why people get so damn sick from this crap. It's poisonous.
It is, and it's so crazy how we're just injecting our kids with this. It's so interesting to me, like the psychology of not just American people, but people around the world where, I don't know what it is. It's like a collective spell. 'Cause you see like in the 90s when cell phones started becoming a thing, and then the mid 2000s when the smartphone became a thing. And then, to support all of that, you have the 5G network, which is coming. And then you have, vaccines and stuff like that. And it's crazy to me that people just go all in on something that there's no, at the time, research about, because in the 90s there was, there wasn't 20-year studies on cell phones in 1995, but it's just crazy how quickly people just adopt new things without looking into the health effects of them. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's mind control.
Yeah.
You have to understand that 90% of the the communications industry is owned by 6 mega corporations. Excuse me. So they literally, control what information disseminates to the people, which in essence, using mind control, like words like wellness. So if you attach wellness to it, it confers a feeling of well-being
Right.
and innocence and non-harmful. Just like the government when they created the Patriot Act, it took all your rights away of habeas corpus, but it's a Patriot Act is very, altruistic. It's mind control techniques, and they've mastered them.
It's always the opposite of what it seems, isn't it? It's like
100%.
So what are some things, so is the cyber scan in terms of new technologies that you were talking about? Because before the show, I was just asking you about the GB4000 and some of those devices, which are the Rife technology and the frequency generators. I think there's a MOPA device or something like that.
That's a broadcasting system.
Okay, so are those...
Yeah, but, just to cut you short, in a sense, the frequencies are wonderful, but you have to make a diagnosis to know what frequencies to use.
Now, those machines don't make a diagnosis?
Correct.
Okay. Now, are you familiar? Because it sounds like you're very familiar with all these types of machines. I don't know what I've seen them, a biophoton analyzer. Is that similar to what we're talking about?
Well, biophotons are basically what the sun produces, and it's in living food. So anything that produces biophotons is increasing the energy in your body, which is then going to reset, I say go back to factory default.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why, the difference between synthetic vitamins and food-based supplements. Synthetic vitamins do not have biophotons. Fritz Albert Popp, was a German researcher that discovered this wonderful thing. And, of course, they don't like what he said because this way it downplays synthetic vitamins. But food-based vitamins have the biophotons, which actually, does the healing.
And that's like the light frequencies coming from the sun and all of that, right?
Yeah, well, here's my little scenario. The sun produces the biophotons. They're stored in the leaves and the stems of plants. You eat the raw plants, you get the biophotons, and it heals the body.
Interesting. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, that's why we're supposed to eat, more raw foods and stuff like that, because it's got all of that in there.
You got it. It's too simple. So,
in terms of these little devices, what technologies are really exciting you these days?
Well, we have the biophoton. It's called Bioptron. It's a Swiss-based company, $5 billion a year company.
Oh, wow.
And back in the 80s, they produced synthetic sunlight without the deleterious UV or UVBs. So it has a frequency range from 480 nanometers to 3400. Well, you have to understand that 380 to around 400 is your UVs, which are dangerous, damaging. So the bandwidth is from 480, which is about 80 nanometers above the UVs, and then at 3400 you'll have infrared, which stimulates nitric oxide production, which is anti-inflammatory and speeds up healing process. So this biophoton, is amazing technology. I had a woman from Nova Scotia that had really bad pain from a femur fracture from back in August, and about 4 months ago she came to me, and I used the full spectrum light on that area for a half hour, and 90% of the pain disappeared.
Interesting. And what's that called? A bioptron?
Bioptron, yeah.
Wow, is that something you could search online? That word?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll find it. And what was interesting, my good friend did a research little experiment. They took an organic carrot, and they cut it, and they took a Kirlian photograph, and it showed a beautiful aura of energy around the cut carrot. Then they put it in the microwave for 10 seconds, took another Kirlian photograph, and totally dead, no energy pattern. Then they exposed that cooked carrot with the bioptron, the full spectrum light, for 8 minutes, and then took another Kirlian photograph, and it totally restored, and in fact it actually enhanced the original energy pattern in that carrot.
That is fascinating stuff. That is just, It's interesting to me because the more I'm learning about natural health, the more I'm coming across information about light and frequency and sound and all of these things. And if you think about the electrons in our body and how they pass over the mitochondrial membrane and how biophotons affect that, and it really starts to make you think like, before we get to the biophysics of food and things, which is really important, we're much more electrical and beings of light. And so I'm starting to really be intrigued by all this, frequency and sound and light, and it's fascinating.
Well, another modality we use is called TheraPhi, which is scalar energy with 18 healing frequencies piggybacked on the scalar energy. And I didn't treat this case, but there was a woman, it was a press release that someone sent to me because I have a unit, and they were sending it to all the users. She was given 2 weeks to live because she had metastatic breast cancer, and it had spread to her liver and spleen. And she was treated 20 minutes a day with the TheraPhi, which is that scalar energy plus 18 healing frequencies, 20 minutes a day for 4 weeks. And Justin, all the cancer in her body totally disappeared.
20 minutes a day for 4 weeks.
That's right.
This is an interesting device because I just searched it, and I think, are you familiar with Michael Tellinger?
Doesn't ring a bell. But.
Okay, he does he's a South African guy. He's not really much into health, but he is in a sense that he does a lot of research in like these ancient civilizations and this kind of thing. And at one of his conferences coming up, he is having one of these TheraPhi devices there. And I thought, so this is the same thing that you're talking about. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a woman that had 8 years of vertigo, and a year ago, October, she came in and we did a 3-minute treatment, and she's never had a bout of vertigo since.
What do you think this is doing?
Well, it's real simple. If you look at the Russian researchers and Thomas Galen Hieronymus, who was a father of radionics, when you integrate all their different researches, there's 3 main issues that are being dealt with. Number one, it's a fractal conjugated waveform. In layman's terms, it's a double helical configuration like DNA. Mm-hmm. So it's literally providing the baseline template to heal your DNA in a body. Secondly, it electronically is disassembling viruses, heavy metals, chemicals. So, for example, I had a neurologist in about 7 months ago, had a sore throat. In 6 minutes on the machine, her sore throat totally disappeared. So in essence, what it's doing is changing the molecular configuration of the virus so that the frequency pattern now is no more pathological to the host. So it changes these chemicals, and it's kind of like alchemy in a sense. I mean, because Hieronymus back in the 40s was exposing depleted soils with scalar energy, and when they reevaluated the soil, it was perfectly balanced. So it was literally an alchemy-type reaction in that deficient minerals were being replenished by transmutation of other minerals to balance out the soil. So, and then the third thing that the scalar energy, the TheraPhi does, is stimulate stem cells. So you have the best of all worlds. You're cleansing the DNA, you're disassembling the toxins, and then you're stimulating stem cells for repair. It doesn't get any better than that.
Now, do you have one of these devices, and do you use it every day?
Oh, absolutely. I treat myself 20 minutes a day. That's why when you got on the phone with me, you said you sound so great, because it's anti-aging. I just turned 75, April 5th, but physiologically I'm like 35.
My goodness. And you do this for like 20 minutes a day?
That's it.
Wow.
Don't get any better.
Yeah, so all you got to do is lay down in between. For those that are listening, it sounds like, or it looks like, I'm just looking at the photos here, there's a couple different, I should just say devices at the foot of where you lay and at the head, and you kind of lay in between these two devices, and it's transmuting its energy through you, it looks like.
Yeah, it creates this conjugated fractal energy form. It's like two pine cones that are glued together, so you're immersed in this plasma field. And the plasma field is the 18 healing frequencies plus the scalar energy, which is literally recalibrating your body back to factory default, back to when you were 21 again.
That's fascinating. So is it detrimental to do longer than 20 minutes?
No. I mean, it's just energized. I mean, you can get too energized, but depends if you want to walk on water or not.
How much of a superhero you really want to be, right? It's like,
exactly.
That's funny. That's great. So, so those are some interesting devices. How much does that thing run for? Is it cost?
It was like $25,000.
$25,000.
Yeah, it's cheap in the total scheme of things because it's correcting the core issue. I mean, you know, when you go to your medical doctor and he's doing all kinds of treatments on you, you know, other than surgery, maybe cutting something out, but they're really not getting at the core issue.
Yeah, it's just putting a Band-Aid over symptoms, and, you know, that works for a while, but you're really not curing anything. You're not really overcoming anything.
Well, this is a perfect segue into the so-called autoimmune issues. I'll give you an example. My daughter, about 5 years ago, was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and, you know, right away autoimmune, and it was in her thyroid, and the doctor wanted to put her on Tapazole, which, you know, is a drug that suppresses overactive thyroids. And she said, "Dad, what should I do?" And I said, "No way in hell do you want to suppress the thyroid because it's going to disrupt your whole body function."
Yeah, right.
So she told the endocrinologist, "My father's going to treat me alternatively," and he said to her, "It doesn't work." Well, he didn't know who he was messing with. So when I did my energetic testing, she had Epstein-Barr virus trapped in her thyroid. And come on, Justin, think about it. Why in the ultimate scheme of things would a body attack itself if it's healthy? So there's something in there. Just that the medical profession doesn't have the database of knowledge nor the diagnostic skills to define what the heck is in that area. You know, so I had another woman who also had Hashimoto's, and she had nickel from a retaining orthodontic wire that was glued onto her lower teeth in the back. And then she had a wisdom tooth removed 7 years before she came to me, and she had cytomegalovirus trapped in the jawbone where the tooth was extracted, so that migrated through the lymphatic system into her thyroid, plus the nickel ions, which migrated out of the stainless steel wire. And when I removed those two offending initiators, her Hashimoto's disappeared. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's a fluke. It's just so common sense. I mean, my grandmother said common sense has to be learned.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's fascinating. There's a Dr. Nancy Banks out there, and I think she's living somewhere abroad now because of this whole, you know, she's just basically been chased out of the country. But she's got some books that talk about how there's no such thing as a virus, and she goes into great detail about it. And then I was listening to someone a couple years ago, what is his name? Dr. Marshall. I forget what his first name is, but he's down in Australia. He's got something called the Marshall Protocol, and it's all about autoimmune diseases. And he's saying the same thing you are. He's saying there's no such thing. The body doesn't attack itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a foreign body in there, and it could be a pesticide, it could be a heavy metal, you know, it could be a virus. You know, it just... And see, medicine, I don't know if you realize it, but the average physician's IQ goes down 8 to 10 points after 4 years of medical school because they're so busy, you know, jamming facts in his head and blood work and testing and all that they stop thinking.
Wow.
So, you know, you got to connect the dots. I mean, it took me over 35 years to connect the dots so that you can see physiologically and structurally how these things are working.
Yeah, because this guy was saying something about, if I can go, Trevor Marshall is his name, and he was saying something to the effect, I'm going off of like 4 years of memory of his work here, but basically there's vitamin D receptors, which has an impact on the immune system, and when he was talking about different autoimmune diseases, he was saying what happens is that these L-form bacteria, which basically hide from the body, so your body doesn't know what they are. They turn off these vitamin D receptors on the cell side, and so it looks like these things are, you know, according to him, it looks like the body's attacking itself, but it's much more in depth as to what's going on. And so if he's correct and you're correct, that would make sense that, you know, some of these things could be treated by re-educating the body as to what's foreign, what's domestic, and, you know, all of that, you know?
Well, if you've had a chance to listen to Bruce Lipton's work, I mean, he's one of my heroes. He's talking about epigenetics. And, you know, he back in the 60s, he was studying stem cells when no one else knew what the heck they even were. And what was fascinating, he showed you could cut out the genes and the chromosomes from the cell, and it'll still function fine. So what is actually dictating the physiology of the cell? It's the receptors on the cell membrane. So if you have a bad thought process, and I'll give you a perfect example. You go to an oncologist, and this guy says, "Oh, I got bad news for you. You got 2 months to live." Well, if you buy into that lie, you'll die exactly in 2 months because your body's physiology gets programmed to die.
So when someone gives you a diagnosis, then what's going on? There's something much deeper than just saying you've got XYZ disease, right? It's much deeper than that.
That's right. And that's why, it's despicable that a physician would put this, negative thought in the patient's head, because if they buy into that lie, they're self-destructing. You're suppressing the whole immune system.
We have a doc on our show that comes on somewhat regularly, and he talks about, he's very familiar with Dr. Hammer's work and very much into it, and he practices recall healing and Gestalt therapy, and his name's Dr. Massey, and he says that, when you go into a doctor's office and the doctor says, I'm sorry to tell you that you have XYZ disease. I'm not even going to give those labels a name here, but you have XYZ disease. What he says is like that in and of itself is a second diagnosis that has more impact on the body than the original disease.
Yeah, because you're impacting the receptors of the cell membrane.
Crazy.
And that's what dictates the physiology inside the cell.
So when you believe that, when a doctor tells you that, what's happening to the receptor sites? They're accepting more of the disease inside of the cell, or what's happening? Well,
you're disrupting the physiology, because when you have a negative thought, it affects the hormones in your body, the chemistry. Like when you're stressed out, you become more acidic, which decreases the oxygen level, and it stimulates your adrenals, which kick out cortisol, which, is metabolic. I mean, it's anti-aging. It just tears down your body. So, all this adverse chemical imbalance occurs, and that affects the cell membranes via the receptors, and, you're a goner.
Yeah, it's crazy because it all starts with some sort of hypnotic belief that we've been programmed with, like you were saying earlier, that, when you put so much trust and faith in some of these people who can have so much authority over you, or you give them authority over you to tell you this is what's going on in your body right now, and somehow you believe that they know that, then, man, you just put yourself behind the 8 ball, and talk about putting yourself in a position of weakness there,
Well, a perfect example in the Deepak Chopra's wonderful book, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, he discusses an experiment that they did with 2 groups of rabbits. Both rabbits groups were fed high cholesterol diets. The only thing different, the one group were taken out of their cage before they were fed, and they were played with and petted and cooed and everything. And the other rabbits, they just, shoved the food in their cage. Well, at the end of the experimental period, when they analyzed the blood of the 2 rabbits, the rabbits that were petted and talked to and before they fed them the high cholesterol diets had normal cholesterol.
Wow. Same diet, everything. Yeah,
so when you have your Haagen-Dazs milkshake or ice cream, eat it with love.
Right? That's so true, isn't it? I mean, that's the whole idea of giving thanks, and it's crazy.
Prayer, absolutely.
Prayer, it works. Like, some people call quackery on the Dr. Emoto stuff, but maybe what's really going on, if it is quackery, some people say it is, some people say it's not, but I think even if it is, what it's doing at the very least is affecting ourselves. When we say a prayer and we give thanks for the food we have, it's affecting our own biology, and then that in effect can have a cascading effect on everything we do. So, Yeah,
well, these same people that call that quackery, I always reiterate this when I lecture. I said most people would rather be killed by a notorious doctor than be healed by a quack.
I know. Isn't that true? It's so good. That's
but
so true.
They say it's quackery. You have to understand that's mind control technique. To they back in the 60s, the CIA, they devised that whole technology to deter people from believing the truth. So they came up with conspiracy theory
Right.
And so when they call something quackery, it's the same mind control concept, planting that, thought of doubt. But come on, the guy was a scientist, Emoto, and he documented if you take the same water and you put it in a glass and put one over a picture of Hitler and one over a picture of a smiling baby, when they freeze the water, the one with the smiling baby has beautiful symmetrical pattern of the ice crystals, and the one over Hitler is all fragmented and disrupted. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, come on. They give off frequencies. And, in fact, one of the miracles that Mother Teresa was reported to have done was she was in India, and she visited a woman who had stomach cancer, and she gave the woman a picture of herself, and she has a very high energy field because she was a healer. And the woman kept the picture of Mother Teresa over the area of the stomach where the cancer was, and the cancer disappeared. Well, it was actually therapy because pictures give off frequencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. And aren't there studies also showing that people who have hospital beds next to a window and can see outside in the forest and see the light have a quicker recovery rate from surgeries and things?
Well, of course.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, it's interesting too that this idea of giving thanks, like you're saying with the Haagen-Dazs ice cream, it's I don't know, somehow as a culture we've gotten so disconnected from the cycle of life and where our food comes from, and then our connection to all of that in our life and the seasons of our life and the earth itself. Like we're in all of these cycles within cycles within cycles. But somehow in our modern culture, we just think that we can disconnect from all that and still be healthy. It's strange.
Well, it's like the doctors will tell you, go to an oncologist, they'll say, there's no relationship between the food and the cancer that you have. I mean, these guys are so far out in left field, it's not even funny. I went through it twice with my wife with breast cancer in 97 and then stage 3 ovarian cancer in 2002. But, these guys are, they're Neanderthal mentality. I mean, I politely asked him, I said, aren't you going to check her pH when she was in the hospital one time? And he said, it's not important. I said, well, Otto Warburg, won a Nobel Prize in physiology back in 1931 because he figured out that if you have a pH below a 6.5 that, you get fermentation and enhances the growth of cancer. I said, that seems pretty important to me. But he just blew it off because, they're unaware of this technology.
Yeah, that's... I mean, it makes sense because you have to have, if you're coming from their perspective, it makes sense because they can't. But man, I feel like it's like for them in that field, what do they have to work with? They've got drugs, they've got surgery, and they've got what else? Chemotherapy, radiation.
Come on, Justin, just think about it.
It's just not much.
They're the only oncologists are the only doctors that get a kickback on the medication. Any other doctor would have their license revoked if they got a kickback on the medication that they recommended to the patient. Plus, another big factor that people don't realize is that there's a whole process in our society. It's called thinning the population. It's called eugenics. And they're not only thinning the population, but they're generating over $450 billion a year of revenue from cancer treatment.
The history of heat therapy dates back over 2,400 years, and it was Hippocrates who said, "Give me the power to produce fever, and I will cure all disease." This FDA-approved medical device called the Biomat is a mat that you can lay on, read on, sleep on, do yoga on, sit on, and it can be used on office chairs, massage tables, and the like to help the body heal itself. It's inlaid with 30 pounds of healing crystals using amethyst and a rare black tourmaline producing negative ions in a healing electrical field. These healing crystals help to restore cellular health by replacing electrons to the atoms as well as penetrating deep into the body by 4 to 6 inches. What can the Biomat do for you? It'll improve your skin, burns as many calories as if you went jogging for 30 minutes. It improves the immune system by up to 40% or more, reduces stress and fatigue, removes toxins, lowers cholesterol, relieves pain, revitalizes cellular metabolism. It improves cell channels to deliver nutrients and oxygen to every one of your cells. It activates over 3,000 enzymes. And even a Harvard medical study showed cancer cells die at over 42 degrees Celsius. It reduces stress hormones by up to 78%. It allows your body to produce heat shock proteins, which increases endorphins, NK cells, T cells, and lymphocytes. It's very, very low EMF, and it's got a 17-layer technology. Dr. Mark Serkis is the director of the International Medical Veritas Association. Explain to us more about these biomats.
These biomats are these far infrared mattresses. You lay on them, or you sleep on them, or both. You do very heavy treatments during the day, and at night you sleep at just a nice comfortable temperature. These biomats are like these love machines, comfort machines, and healing machines, because what they do is they just radiate out light, far infrared light, and you can radiate yourself all night long while you're sleeping when you're not doing anything else. And what happens is this light penetrates the body and turns to heat. And the first thing that happens when you bring your core body temperature up 1 degree is your immune system strength increases by 40-50%. They feel when you lay down on them, you guys know, you have one. So it's like the feeling is so good. It's like being in the cuddling with a lover, your wife or husband. It's just warmth and comfort.
How are you using biomats for patients in your clinics?
The cancer treatment using heat is very aggressive, meaning during the day, you sandwich yourself in between two of them, turn it on to high heat, and bake the cancer. The cancer will die before you will. No, this is, you can go to England and spend $20,000 and use microwave a cancer out of existence. These biomats basically do the same thing. Radiation therapy for cancer is really a solid idea. Unfortunately, oncologists use the wrong radiation. They use radiation that kills you. This biomat uses radiation that can save your life and make your life more comfortable, keep you warm in the cold, and help take care of your kids and all. The list doesn't end.
Yeah, because isn't there some sort of temperature at which cancer cells will start dying?
Right, and it's below the temperature that human cells will die.
So you really like this biomat far infrared technology, don't you?
But it's strengthened me. Well, now the kids are addicted to it. They fight on who's going to sleep on it at night. And it not only changed my life, but it changed my medical practice and my books. This is a great machine for anybody who lives in the cold during the winter. Instead of heating a big house, you just heat yourself. Bottom line, it brings good feelings. Just lay on this biomat, and it gives the strength back.
I can attest to that indeed. Kate and I love ours, and we think you will too. Learn more about these amazing biomats at extremehealthradio.com/biomat. Or you could check them out in our store as well. Again, that's extremehealthradio.com/biomat. Yeah, you know what? There was an interesting article I saw just the other day. Let me see if I can pull this up. Speaking of that, and it was an article quoting one of the Rothschilds, and it says here, let me see if I can pull that up. It's so fascinating. He says here, this is from the Australian National Review. I thought it was Rothschild, but it's Goldman Sachs, and he says, curing cancer is not a, quote, sustainable business model. It's like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, these people are warped. But, in the total things, using medical literature, chemotherapy is 2% effective.
Yeah, I've heard up to 3, but does it really matter?
Yeah, maybe that's stretching. It's like 2.3% effective. So round it off. So it's 97% failure.
Isn't that nuts?
It is, and then people, they can't wait till they get and it's a fear factor. Because I had a patient who for 4 years was treated with chemo for lung cancer, and he was getting worse. And I put him on a program, and this was supposedly the tried and true gold standard that they were using on him that failed. Mm-hmm. And I put him on a program, and he was getting better. And I have a testimonial that he admitted he was a cynic, but he was actually getting better. And then, he basically jumped ship and went for the experimental chemo, which probably killed him. But it's fear. Mm-hmm. It's absolute 100% fear-based.
Yeah, it's a big industry. Do you know how big of an industry cancer is by Your memory?
Well, yeah, it generates over $450 billion a year, and it pays for the military budget.
450 billion?
Billion, yeah.
My goodness.
Probably more.
And how do you, so where does that money, it trickles into the military budget somehow?
Well, to the government, from the fees.
Ah, I see.
From the sale of the items and the taxes that are paid on it. And
Man, oh man. I mean, too, I guess you would have a real big problem if you were curing cancer, because then you got all these people to deal with that are probably most likely sick and unable to work and generate tax revenue. So there's an issue with that on their side. If they're going to turn around and make money from a cure, then what do you do with all these people that are most likely not going to be working? Or maybe they would. Who knows,
Yeah, but see, you have to understand the goal of the Illuminati is basically disrupt the whole innate fabric of society. And so this is a great way of doing it. So is autism. You're not going to have another generation of people.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. What do they say? 1 in 50 now? Is that, or by 2020 it's 1 in 50 or something?
It's going to be a lot more.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. My goodness. So what other types of what should I say? Not
breakthroughs.
Yeah, technology are you coming across these days?
Well, my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I had a major breakthrough in treating post-concussion syndrome. And those of your audience that may have seen the movie Concussion, played by Will Smith, he portrayed the Nigerian pathologist Bennett Amalu. In fact, I have a radio show with a retired medical doctor. We interviewed Bennett Amalu, and he's a brilliant guy and just from the heart. But he's basically documenting the tau protein that forms from the damage to the brain. But there's another component of concussion that's totally being missed by the establishment, and that is there's a subtle motion of the base of the skull that when you breathe in, it has a strain pattern of going up like a top of a tent, like a V, called flexion. And then when you exhale, it goes in the opposite direction, and it helps to pump the cerebrospinal fluid around the brain and get the nutrients into the cells and the waste products out and the hormones, where to have to go. But so when you get traumatized, that subtle motion gets reversed. And there's very few people on this planet that have the skills to diagnose it, and they can do it in seconds, and also treat it. The perfect example, I had a friend, actually became a friend of mine now, but a year ago, April, I met him at a meeting, and he was telling me his story of woe. In 1995, in December, he was at a hockey game, sitting on the front row. It was a college game, and two guys, checked each other, and the glass pane, 65-pound glass pane, fell out of its holder and hit him on the head, and it didn't break.
Oh my God!
So for 4.5 months, he was unable to go to work because of all the post symptoms of headache and dizziness and fatigue. And so for almost 22 years, 21 and 3/4 years, this poor guy suffered headaches every day, no less than a 3. And when it rained, he literally had to crawl into a dark bedroom because the pain was so excruciating. And he went to all these top neurologists and other pain management people, and they basically shot him up with, Botox and all kinds of other. I mean, they were using him as a guinea pig because they didn't know what the heck to do for the poor guy. So I met him in a meeting a year ago, April, and I quickly examined his cranium. I said, Andy, I can fix you. And he looked at me with a jaundiced eye. It was about 5 months until he finally, walked into my office with his tail between his legs because his friends kept urging him to come see me. And I adjusted his cranium. It took a little over an hour. And he walked out for the first time in almost 22 years without a headache, and it has not returned.
Wow.
So this is not an isolated instance. I have about 11 cases on my website of similar situations. We had a woman that flew in from Tobago with 20 years severe migraine headache, 2 concussions, 3 whiplash injuries, and been put on all the pain medication that's in the PDR, physician desk reference. Nothing worked. And 3.5 years ago, she came into me in December, and I adjusted her cranium, and she walked out without a migraine and never to return again.
So the concussions are connected to this place in the base of the spine or the base of the skull, connected to the
Correct.
Spine, upper cervical, and
it disrupts the normal motion of the base of the skull. So when you breathe in, it's going in the opposite direction, and it's impeding the flow of cerebrospinal fluid into the brain. So when you get a trauma and you have inflammation, that's what perpetuates the motor and sensory dysfunction of the body.
So what's going on with, is it true then that a concussion is a bruise to the brain? And if that's true, then how does that place at the base of the brainstem affect that bruise somewhere else on the brain?
Well, it's simple, because when you get trauma, you get inflammation, and inflammation is what impedes the blood flow into the brain and the cerebrospinal fluid and the exiting of waste products and all. So then you get motor and sensory deprivation or dysfunction, basically.
So it's possible for people that have concussion-based injuries to completely reverse, you think?
I've done it.
Yeah.
Numerous times. I mean, if you go on my website, icnr.com, and you'll see about cranial. We had a woman, when I was lecturing in the Philippines, she was had 8 months. That was about 8 months of sleep problems, insomnia, dysfunction. They thought she had a stroke. She had a whiplash injury, and she had numbness and tingling down her left arm. Anyway, I adjusted her cranium right in front of the whole group. We had like 80 dentists at the meeting there, and I adjusted them, and then her pain disappeared immediately. And the next day she came in, she said, I didn't have to take any medication to sleep for the first time in 8 months.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Wow. I mean, there's so many people dealing with head injuries, and, I've been learning recently that, a lot of these things that people are doing they don't consider them to be traumatic or, can cause concussions, but people are getting injured in the same way from like heading a soccer ball, or parents playing with their kids and, jostling their little heads around, or all of these little sustainable sort of injuries, but they're causing concussions in people, which is crazy.
Well, you can have an iatrogenic or doctor-induced trauma. If you go and get an extraction and, the oral surgeon's like a gorilla and he's putting too much force and pulling out the tooth, that can disrupt your motion of the base of the skull. I mean, if you get a rough chiropractic adjustment, and I've had patients with that type of scenario where, the rough adjustment reversed the motion of the base of the skull. So, it can be caused by inadvertent lack of understanding.
Yeah, that's fascinating, right? I mean, you would think the human brain and the head would be more, stronger than that to be able to, I guess it might be a per person, some people might be more susceptible to these types of things too, Well,
only if you're a woodpecker, because, their brains are designed to have a sling in the brain so that they don't get a concussion when they're whacking the tree.
Wow. Gosh, if you combine the amount of people with possible concussions and issues in their brain with pharmaceuticals and the idea that, I don't know, what percentage is it, like 1 out of every 2 or 3 people in America are on a medication? So you add that to the possibility that, many of these people might have, concussions as well. I mean, it's just like no wonder why people are going crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a young fella flew in from China, and he had 16 years of post-concussion syndrome, and when he was 6 years old, he fell out of a barn and, hit his head. Anyway, he was 22 years old when he wound up on my doorstep, so for 16 years he had sleep issues and headache issues and all, and it took me about an hour and a half, and I adjusted his cranium, and he walked out without a headache. And he came in with his twin brother, and his twin brother was so excited. She says, "Oh, could you adjust my head too?" And I said, "Sure." So I adjusted his. But yeah, it's the duration has no factor in it, only in that you can get more extensive, let's say, damage to the brain the longer that this thing lingers. But it's still reversible, because once you get a blood flow back into the brain, I believe that you have neuroplasticity, that the brain cells can heal themselves.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what Dr. Lipton talks about too, right? The neuroplasticity. Yep. And yeah, it's fascinating. Wow. So what other, what new ideas are you researching? For me, I've been learning a lot about light lately, and how, light affects the body, and, DHA levels in the body and all that kind of stuff. What kinds of things have you been into lately?
Well, we do what they call now a virtual injection. So, for example, I had a woman in from Michigan who had pain in her shoulder, and none of the doctors could figure out where it was coming from. And using my energetic medicine, she had a strep infection in the muscle tissue where the pain was. And so then I tested to see which nutrient would counteract that, and it turned out to be ionic silver or colloidal silver. So what I did, Justin, was put a little bit of the colloidal silver in a Pyrex little vial, glass vial, and I beamed a green healing laser, 532 nanometers, and I pulsed it through the vial into the area where the pain was. And in 30 seconds, the pain totally disappeared.
Was this
so literally by beaming the frequency of the remedy into the area, it disassembled the energy pattern of the strep bacteria.
Was this woman remote, or was she with you physically?
No, she came here, yeah.
She came there. Can you do this type of work remotely?
Well, not so much with that, because you need the actual physical character of the frequency being beamed into. But you could do it with the cyber scan. See, if we have patients from all around the world, and they'll send us a hair sample. So from the hair sample, you can delineate what is going on, and then work up a program and beam it to them. So that'll work. But if you're doing it physically, you need to have the patient there.
That makes sense. I guess someone could theoretically send something in the mail to you. But what machine did you use for this lady?
For which one? The one where I beamed into the light? Yeah.
What machine was that?
It's a real machine. For about $10 you can buy a laser online, and it's a 532 nanometers, a green laser. So it's a laser pointer that you use for lecturing, and I just pulsed that through the vial that had the ionic silver.
Interesting. Wow. Man, there's some weird things going on with the human body. I think Dr. Marshall was on our show years ago before he passed on, and he was talking about that Fritz Albert Popp, whom you mentioned, and the bioplasma energy field that surrounds all of our bodies, and it's the ability for our body to connect and communicate with that plasma energy field that constitutes health, and just all kinds of, man, it's like you don't learn this stuff in health class in high school. It's just like,
right.
It's crazy.
Well, the other unfortunate thing is, see, in the healthy environment, eating raw foods, and the biophotons in your body imprint the frequency into the fluid, because your body is about 70% fluid. So that fluid acts as an antenna pulling in the ambient scalar energy from our environment. This is what Tesla was trying to put together as free energy for the people, and of course they pulled the research funds from them back in the 30s. But so here's the caveat of this whole thing is, when you become toxic with heavy metals, with glyphosate, pesticides, other chemicals, vaccines, it's polluting the fluid in your body, which then diminishes its ability to act as an antenna pulling in the ambient energy to keep you healthy.
Oh, so this ambient energy is coming from, what is that, like the
Schumann resonance?
It's
all around us.
It's all around us.
See, people think it's empty. It's not empty. It's totally, and this is what Tesla proved. He could beam electricity, without wires.
So this is probably why it's so important to be outside more, right?
Well, one of the reasons, sure, fresh air, I put it in quotes, from the chemtrails and all the other crap, but basically, yeah, you want fresh air, you want sunshine, not only for the vitamin D, but, just the energy, the scalar energy that it's producing. Absolutely. And just, doing something physical. I mean, I love to work on my lawn just because I call it a mental enema. I get out there and I work with my hands and feet, and it just clears my head.
Yeah.
I'm not worrying about phone calls and patients and this and that. You need that type of physical activity.
I hear you. I've been spending more and more time outside and doing physical things lately in the last few years. Closing up, I'm curious just what your diet is like, because we haven't really talked about diet. Like, what do you eat? Do you follow any kind of program, or what's your kind of current diet like?
Well, you have to understand metabolic typing. William Wilcott wrote a wonderful book called The Metabolic Typing Diet. You can't make everybody a vegetarian. And the key is that if you have a certain metabolic type, like I'm a type 2, which means that I'm a fast oxidizer and parasympathetic dominant. So I need animal protein and good quality fats in my diet. So I'll eat more protein and like avocado or, that type of thing to get, good quality fats.
Mm-hmm.
But if, and it proved it to me unequivocally 100% accurate. In 1980, I went into macrobiotics, and I was strict vegetarian. Way after 2.5 months, I would have killed for a piece of meat.
Oh, man.
Let me tell you. And so physiologically, you can't handle a strict vegetarian diet because it'll make you more acidic. Because when you take in the alkaline vegetables, it stimulates more hydrochloric acid production, and you actually become more acidic. So to become more alkaline, eating animal protein that has nitrogen in it, and ammonia, or nitrogen really, it'll help alkalize you.
Oh, okay.
So the point is, for me, I'll eat sashimi, the raw fish. I stay away from chicken because from my blood type, from Diodamo's work, I'm a B positive, and I was getting like sleepy at the end of the day if I ate a chicken sandwich or something, or had chicken for lunch. And since I stopped eating it, I don't get sleepy after eating it. Tomatoes are not the greatest for me. So, it's combining a combination of Diodamo's work, William Wilcott's work, William Kelly's work for the typing diet. He used the Kelly program back in the 60s. He had pancreatic cancer, totally got rid of it, lived for 47 years.
Mm-hmm.
His second wife was in a concussion, and he had to flip. He couldn't give her a vegetarian diet. He had to give her animal protein and fat, and she snapped out of the coma. But so you have to understand the physiology of that person. So if they're a type 1 metabolic type, meaning sympathetic dominant, slow oxidizer, if you give them animal protein, you're going to make them worse.
Mm.
So a vegetarian diet is perfect for them.
Now, I wonder, we had a guy on the show a few years ago, and he was talking about how, he really advocated animal food and organ meats and things like that. And he was a big proponent of that. But he said he doesn't recommend that for anybody, even based on their metabolic type or their current, body type, things like that, just because of the toxicity effect and how high upstream the animals are being exposed to, different chemicals in the air much more than plants are. It was weird to hear a guy say that, he was really into animal food, but he doesn't recommend it for anybody. And I wonder, do you think that's something that we just need to make sure we focus on grass-fed, grass-finished, organic, and leave the rest up to God? Or do you think there's something to what he was saying?
No, I believe exactly what he was saying. Organ meats have the highest concentration of nutritional value. No two ways about it.
Mm-hmm.
But, are you going to eat a liver of a chicken that's grown by Purdue?
Mm-hmm.
With all that toxic chemicals that they're, feeding, they use arsenic, pesticide on the chicken feed. In fact, I had a young woman, 29 years old, 3 molar teeth fell out of her jawbone, and no one could figure out what was going on, and she was referred to me, and I tracked it down to the chicken that she was eating, which had high arsenic levels, and the arsenic is a toxic metal, and it prevents the uptake of nutrients into the jawbone to repair it. So she was losing jawbones, density, and the teeth literally fell out of her head. The key is if you can get relatively clean organs. I love a good piece of chicken liver, for example.
Uh-huh.
But it was interesting. I have 2 wonderful cats, and I feed them raw food.
Uh-huh.
And I was going to this Amish guy that I was assuming was getting range grown chickens and stuff like that. And I was feeding him raw chicken gizzards and that kind of stuff and liver. And my cats were they got sick. They got colds. And then it dawned on me that this virus is probably in this raw chicken that I'm giving them. And I cut it out, and I switched over to other grass-fed raw meats and veal and turkey and that. And they recuperated.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. There's a guy out there in your neck of the woods, Miller's Organic Farm. Is that what it's called? I think it's Miller's Farm, and he's an Amish guy, and he's in Pennsylvania somewhere. And just got really great products. There's a lot of good people doing good things out there.
Oh, absolutely. But that's what they don't want, and that's why they ban raw milk, for example, because they don't want you to get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll raid the poor Amish farmers,
I know. Remember that?
They're terrorists. They're supplying real food to people.
It's crazy. There was that. Do you remember that story a few years back of, I forget, was it a raw vegan cafe out here in California that got raided by the FDA for selling raw milk? It was just crazy.
It certainly is. But, there is solutions out there, and, I don't have any $1 million grants, but, being diligent and flipping the rocks and doing a lot of studying, the answers come to you.
That's really, really cool. So you've got some really cool devices and protocols and things that you put people through. Are you still seeing patients physically? People come see you? Yeah?
Yeah, we still, someone told me years ago that retirement is your reward for being unsuccessful in your life.
Good one. That's funny. And so you're still seeing patients, and so when they come to see you, are you primarily focusing on certain protocols, or?
Well, we basically look at, total health issues. I mean, we'll see cancer patients, or we'll see people with, so-called autoimmune problems or whatever. But my whole focus is to find the initiators. If you don't define the initiators, you're not going to solve the problem.
So true.
And it makes no difference, whether if it's a 20-year migraine or you got cancer, there's initiators there. It could be structural, it could be psychological. I mean, I had a woman that had migraine headaches I couldn't get rid of. I treated her for a year and a half, and 3 years after she left the practice, she called me up one day and she said, I got rid of my migraines. I said, what'd they do for you? She said, you won't believe it. She said, when Lou died, her husband, my migraine stopped immediately.
Wow.
So you know that there's a psychosomatic component to headaches and pain and so forth.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, there always seems to be.
Yeah, and that's one thing that unfortunately is not being factored into the healing equation is emotional issues that many people have, and if you don't deal with that, you'll never get rid of the underlying cause.
Yeah, and maybe even past life, past generational stuff too. I mean, who knows?
Oh, I'm 100% in agreement, because the first thing you do when you get a new computer is you transfer over the files. So when the egg and sperm unite, basically they're getting a transfer of maybe 12 generations of software that's being passed on to you that you have no idea what the heck's in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many instances that happen where people have these weird phobias, or people have dreams about World War II stuff, or they just don't know why they hate buttons on their shirts for some weird reason. Doesn't make any sense, but you go back into the family history and you start seeing these patterns. It's just really compelling.
Yeah, or someone can play concert to classical piano and no training.
Isn't that wild? It's so crazy.
Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, the programming is just transferred into our DNA system, so
yeah,
you're getting that file.
I mean, we do it with computers, like you said. So, I mean, there's a software hardware component with those. So why wouldn't there be with us?
Well, it's the same thing. Someone gets a heart transplant, and the guy never liked beer and watermelon or something. All of a sudden, he likes beer and watermelon because that's the source from the transplant, like those foods.
Yeah.
So the memory pattern is being transferred.
Fascinating stuff, man. When the more you get into this, it's like the more you realize you don't know, and the more fascinating it becomes. It's just, it's just unbelievable.
Well, that's why I don't want to retire, because it's too darn exciting. I mean, the stuff that I'm doing, and I lecture internationally and trying to pass on this wealth of knowledge it's changing people's lives.
Now, do you see any more any new modalities on the horizon that you're looking at, that you're trying to sort of vet out and see if it's going to be effective? Are you keeping tabs on that? Are things exciting you that you don't really talk about?
Well, I mean, some of the newer nutrients are pretty exciting. This carbon 60, I'm real excited about. In fact, what I'm doing, carbon can hold a memory pattern, and so what we're doing is taking the carbon 60. It's embedded in the oil. I mean, it could be an avocado or coconut oil or olive oil. Anyway, I'm imprinting the healing frequencies from my scalar device into the carbon fibers, and then when the patients take it, the little pieces of carbon are acting as like a little broadcast radio stations, putting out the healing frequencies internally.
Wow. Yeah, there's been a lot of work lately on that C60 and longevity in mice and things. And wow, that's really interesting to combine it with like scalar technology.
Sure, why not?
Wow. Have you started doing that yet, or is that something you're considering?
No, I do it, and you can muscle test, and you'll see that it's a lot stronger than without the frequencies in there.
Wow.
And plus, we're moving ahead. I'm working with a think tank of people that we're coming out with nutrients that are basically vibrationally infused. See, when you take a liquid nutrient, it gets into the system so much faster than swallowing a pill.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing these vibrationally infused nutrients, and we're getting absolutely phenomenal results.
So it's kind of like homeopathy in the sense that it's using vibration. It's getting down to that minuscule level, but you're infusing it with something specific then.
Yeah, I make a specific formula. So like we have one, it's called the Vanish, and people have immune issues, chronic colds, coughs, flu that they can't kick, and when they spray it in their mouth, it literally, the frequencies boost their immune system without any adverse side effects.
Do you think there will be any blowback from the powers that were about this?
Maybe. But, hopefully in the next couple of years, you're going to see an implosion of the deep state.
Uh-huh. Well, it was interesting. Did you see that little clip from, not to get political here, but with Donald Trump maybe a year ago? But he was basically saying that Americans should have a right to seek out alternative treatments, and they shouldn't have to go to places like Mexico and places like that to find clinics for the type of treatment they want. And he was saying this, in Congress, and it was like, wow, I couldn't believe he said that.
Yeah, he's 100% correct. I mean, when my wife had stage 3 ovarian cancer, I had to take her to Mexico to get treatment down there because the FDA wouldn't approve of the technology. And in 3 weeks, her tumor markers went from 32 to 16, and she looked 10 years younger. So,
wow.
I mean, the information's out there. Again, it's all about protecting the big pharma's pocketbook. That's what it's all about. But I think that's going to change in the next few years, and hopefully Trump will stay in and they won't kill him.
There was, I know, I worry about that with especially in regards to this natural health stuff. I was listening to someone recently, and they were talking about how at a lot of these health conferences, like this guy, this speaker was going around and speaking at different health conferences, and he was telling a story about how after the conference was over, all of the speakers and himself would go in kind of like a rented room of the hotel and talk about some of the more high level stuff and kind of the real successes they're having with people. And he was just joking around, but he was kind of saying that, man, if we were allowed to work unencumbered with other practitioners in natural health, and we were not in any way restricted by the FDA or the U.S. government, like how much progress we could make in 5 years for so many chronic diseases. Like we could almost wipe them all out, but it's because we're all doing things, kind of under the cover. We're kind of careful with our wording. We can't really go out and say much. We're so encumbered by them. But he was saying, like, if you just let us free and we could work with each other and develop technologies, and man, we could wipe everything out.
Well, all you got to do is start with something simple. Grow organic food on balanced soils, and stop with the artificial sweeteners and all the chemicals that are in the food. And you'll see a dramatic reduction in many of the diseases that are plaguing the population today. They'll disappear.
Just being reconnected to the food you eat.
That's right, putting real food in your body.
Who would have thought,
It's that simple.
Right?
Yeah, you don't need any exotic treatments. All you need is real food so that the body can heal itself.
I know. It's just so simple sometimes. We make it so hard,
Well, I always say the closer you get to the truth, the more simplistic the solution is.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's fascinating how complex yet so simple it is,
Yep.
Well, Doc, you've been amazing. Thank you for sharing your time and your energy and your work with us. My goodness, thank you so much for the work that you do. And, you're welcome on any time. I love talking with you, and, I love the work that you do. So let me know if you have anything going on that you want to promote or talk about. Let me know.
Well, I have an interesting ebook that we came out with called Alternative Treatments for Conquering Chronic Pain that people can buy online. It's only $19.95, but it's a lot of my clinical research on how to approach chronic pain, which traditional medicine they don't even know that they don't know. So people that are suffering out there, there's answers to it.
Is that on icnr.com?
Yeah.
Whereabouts? I mean, I want to put a link to that.
Yep, icnr.com. It's on there.
Okay. I'll find that, and then I'll link directly to it. Well, Doc, thanks for all the work that you do. Hang on the line there really quickly. I'm just going to sort of close out the show here and thank everyone for listening. We really appreciate you. You are amazing. You're doing the best you can. We really, really support you, and I hope that this interview helped you and you found some value in it. Some really, really interesting people out there doing really, really fascinating work, and I think it's really important for us to realize that there are people out there that are offering options and different choices than you're being told. And you're not going to get this kind of information on the mainstream news. You'll get it from other podcasts. And that's really, really, I think for me, something fascinating that there's so many great podcasts out there. And I would encourage you to listen to all of them, not just this one, and gain as much information as you can and realize you do have hope and you do have choices. You do have options. So if you found this interview helpful, share it with your friends. We'd appreciate that. And we would all appreciate that, and people would learn, and people would get healed. So thank you for listening. This was episode 580, and I will put a link to the show notes and everything we talked about at extremehealthradio.com/580. Thank you very much, everybody. We love you, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. Kate and I have had our sauna for about a year now, I'd say, when we first got it from Phil Wilson. And it's an incredible machine. We use ours about every single day. Kate sits in about 20 minutes, and I sit in there about for a half hour. Usually watch a documentary, and it's extremely relaxing. It's really, really incredible machine. And if you go to extremehealthradio.com/sauna, you can learn all about it. We did an entire hour interview with Phil Wilson. You can check that out. You can look at the pictures of us with it. You can watch videos on that page. It helps you to sleep really, really well. You can lose a lot of weight with it. You can burn, I think, around 600 calories in about 20 minutes or so. It improves your skin, increases circulation all over the body, and circulation is critical for your health. You can prevent and reverse diseases with it if you have a cold or flu. It's incredible. It heats you down to the core. It heats 4 to 6 inches inside your body, so it's really incredible. And a lot of people use it for cancer as well. So if you have any kind of incurable, quote, disease, you can use it for that. And Dr. Shade is the foremost authority on detoxification. And listen to what he says about it.
How do I detoxify from plastics? I mean, you guys are using a sauna, and what does a sauna do for us? A sauna is great, but it's moving a number of different toxins. Remember, we talked about the mice that if you put PCBs in there, then that made the mercurial that much worse. And sweating moves out a lot of plastics, volatiles, fat-based toxins. It's really good at moving those out, sweating those out. So that's how you're getting those out, and those are contributing to this synergistic soup inside the body. And so that's why they're good, is they're taking out a bunch of the different things in the soup.
And Daniel Vitalis, one of our favorite guests. What do you have to say about the sauna?
When you go into the sauna, like a far-infrared sauna like you discussed, your body goes into a deep relaxation mode, and your sympathetic nervous system shuts down and your parasympathetic nervous system turns on. And when that's active, that's the nervous system, part of your nervous system that's active when you meditate. That becomes active, and your detoxification pathways open up wide. Why is this important? It's important because when you go running and you sweat, you're not necessarily eliminating very much toxicity from your body. But when you sweat in the sauna, you eliminate a lot of toxicity from your body. So sweating in a relaxed state is how we eliminate. The other thing is that what's wonderful about the sauna is that it puts you in a parasympathetic nervous system response, like as if you were meditating. So it's almost a hack. It's like a trick to get yourself into a meditative, relaxed state, to decompress stress, to reverse the effects of stress, and to get your body eliminating deep, deep toxicity that's stored in your body fat because it can come out in the oils of your skin. So I think, sauna is one of the most crucial detoxification, really health practices that we could take on, especially in this era of heavy toxicity, particularly fat-soluble toxins.
This sauna is really, really great. They offer payment plans because if you buy it through PayPal, it's 100% secure. You don't even need a PayPal account. I think you could do a payment plan through PayPal. It's got low EMF electromagnetic fields coming off of it. It's portable, so that means you don't have to knock down a wall in your house. You can just move it from room to room. It sets up in about 2 to 5 minutes. It's super easy to clean. All you got to do is wipe it down when you're done and wipe the neck down. And it produces energy and heat inside very, very evenly throughout the whole machine. All you have to do is sit in there for about 15 minutes a day. And the great thing I like about it too is it requires zero preheating. So you turn it on and you're starting to get warm and you're starting to detoxify with that far infrared light almost immediately. So it's really great. It comes with a 1-year warranty. It's about $990 plus $25 shipping. And that's really, really a good deal because if you look at most of the regular saunas out there, they are in the $2,000 to $4,000 range. So this is really, really a good deal. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna. Well, what do you think? What do you think about Dr. Smith? Interesting guy, right? Dr. Gerald Smith, ICNR.com, and that was episode 580. And I took some pretty good show notes. I think there's a couple things I didn't put in there, but I've got a lot of links here to the things that he talked about, which is cool. I never heard of some of those things though before. Have you? The Biophotons? That sounds interesting. And it's interesting he brought up that TheraPhi thing, that little free energy device or whatever that thing is. It's like uses a Tesla coil. And it's funny because when I brought that up and I thought, oh my goodness, that's exactly what Michael Tellinger has at some of his conferences. And interesting how these things come back around. And I think you can actually do, if you look up CyberScan, I looked on their website and you can search around for different practitioners, like in your area. So if you want to go get a CyberScan, you could go onto their website. I'll put a link to their site so that you can find it really easily. But I found 3 locations, within a few miles of where I live here in Southern California. So you might want to look into that if you're interested in the type of stuff that he does. Or just contact him himself at ICNR. Interesting guy, really, really, really interesting. And I think that, like I was saying before, it's so fascinating that we're just not taught this kind of stuff, and I kind of like how he, threw in a little bit of kind of controversial conspiracy theory type of stuff. It's interesting because we generally don't touch much on those kinds of topics. Conspiracy theories or government politics and stuff. But you know what? For me, that stuff is really fascinating. I've been, if you go onto my personal website, justinstellman.com, I'll put a link to that. You can go into, if you want to watch some of the documentaries that I watch. Let's see, justinstellman.com. I'll put a link to that. But if you go into the documentary section of that website, you can follow along to the documentaries that I watch. And you can see that I'm very much in line with exploring what's really going on in the world and trying to figure some things out, what I've come to know after waking up in 2003 when I first got involved in all of this stuff is that whatever the case is of the world is we're not being told the true story of what's actually happening or where we are. And so the more you dig and the more you research and the more you look into things, the more you realize that, man, oh man, this world is not what we've been told it is. And it becomes infinitely exciting to learn and to gather more knowledge and to free your mind and to understand more about what's actually happening. Because I don't know about you, but you've noticed that, if you take a health class in school, in high school or college. It's just, I don't know. It's just so boring. Like I love optimal health and nutrition and, all this stuff. But if I were to sit in one of those classes, I would be bored out of my mind. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's listening to a podcast like this or other podcasts similar to this where the people are actually passionate about, health and longevity. But I mean, to me, like learning about the 4 basic food groups, nothing could be more false, but more boring as well. But learning and understanding the implications of possibly living till we're 150 and what that will do to the planet and how that affects government and hospitals and the very life that we live. Like, man, that's fascinating to me. And if it's possible, then why aren't they telling us that, and trying to understand, like, are they trying to hide something? And if they are, what are they trying to hide? And so you start going down all these rabbit trails and these rabbit holes of what's really going on. So health is like one sort of way in, but man, you start understanding more and more about where we live and what we're doing here. And the fact that, are some of our health conditions caused by past life traumas? Who knows? If that's the case, then that opens up a whole world of religion and spirituality that maybe is other than what you've been taught. So, man, it just starts, one door opens another door, which opens another door, and then you make your way all the way back out, and then you choose another door, and that goes down a whole different rabbit trail with other doors to open. And all of a sudden, life becomes like this awesome, just vibrant place to learn and to optimize your body. Because, what if it's possible to live for 150 years old and look like you're 60? What if that's possible? Wouldn't that be amazing to live like you're 150 years old and you look like you're 60 and you're just, doing different things and you're passionate about life? I mean, I don't know. That excites me, but listening to the 4 food groups in a high school classroom or a college setting, somehow is less than very exciting to me. So, I think the reason why too is that all this stuff is it opens up so many other wormholes, and you start getting into politics and history and government and contract law and conspiracy theories and all this other stuff, spirituality, religion, and, it's all intertwined, and it becomes this, I don't know. I think it's fascinating. Do I think that everything that Dr. Smith said is accurate? I don't know, maybe, but it's options, right? And like David Wolf said, the only disease that man ever has is a closed mind. So, I just got an email back from one of our emails we send out on our list, and it was highlighting a show that we did. And this guy was saying that, these 2 guests were quacks and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, if you believe that, then that's going to be your reality. Not saying that, if he's right, then he's right. But I'd rather live in the world of possibility and mystery and intrigue than in the world of science where everything's figured out for you and there can be nothing other than the scientific method. I believe that's very true and very accurate and very necessary, but man, there's so much more going on than we're being told. And, I'd rather live in that mystery and that to me, it's an exciting place to live. So hope you guys enjoyed that show. Really cool. Dr. Gerald Smith, episode 580. So I'll put a link to everything I talked about, even in this recap right here, extremehealthradio.com/580. All you got to remember is 580. And you guys can check out the links, and I'll put links to everything there. Also, I want to tell you guys too about the Extreme Health Academy. It's an amazing community of people like you and like me who are fascinated and excited about longevity and overcoming health challenges, naturally without these invasive technologies. So we're offering some really high level, unique stuff inside the Academy. Every single month we release a course, and you guys get to vote on which course you want us to create next. So we create these high level courses, man. These things are like, go into so much depth and detail of the different systems of the body or different organs of the body and different diseases that, how to treat these diseases naturally. And, we have these quick tips videos where we share different ideas and different biohacks and things on video. We have a members hangout where we get to hang out once a month and, ask each other questions and support each other. We've got the mastermind Q&A sessions that are live every single month where we answer your health questions with Dr. John Bergman. We've got a really awesome community, hundreds and hundreds of people. I think we have like 1,000 people in there already talking about all the different topics that we talk about on this show. It's basically an extension of this show in a more practical way, and people being able to support each other. Because there's so many thousands of people that listen to this show that are sort of disconnected from one another. You know, you may be listening in Australia, you may be listening in Europe, maybe listening in Israel. There's people all over the world listening to this show. But how do we connect everyone together so that, you know, there may be some modality that a listener of this show it has had incredibly great experience with for a specific condition, and then they share that success with us, and you know, with someone else, and it's like we're just a conduit for bringing this community together to help support each other, because there's something really powerful about community and being a part of something bigger than yourself. And so I'd invite you to go check out extremehealthacademy.com. I'll put a link to it. It's going to change your life. It's going to really show you so much of what's out there, and we're adding content to that every single month. It's just, man, it's something I'm very proud of, something I've wanted to do ever since I got into this whole field back in 2003. So I'm really proud of it. It's really fun and great to engage with all of you guys inside the forums there, and I love it. So anyway, check out extremehealthacademy.com if you want to learn more, if you're one of those guys or gals that want to take your health to new levels and to see what's possible. So extremehealthacademy.com. Hope you guys enjoyed that show. Thank you for your support. Thank you for purchasing products in our store. You guys are amazing. We have all kinds of cool products in our store. Thank you for patronizing our store. Thank you also for going through our Amazon link and using our Amazon link every single time you make a purchase there, because that supports the show too. And then we recently have 2 new supporters on Patreon. So those of you that just like what we do and want to send us a couple bucks a month, Patreon is a way to do that. So you guys know who you are. Thank you for that. Just amazing. I'm just so blessed to be able to do this show and to help as many people as we possibly can and bring people together. Maybe one day in our community in the Extreme Health Academy, we'll do something like in person. I think that would be fun, wouldn't it? Get together and have a group and share ideas and meet up in person. That would be really cool. I see that happening. So anyway, thank you guys for your support. We love you. We love you so much. Pass the show on to your friends. That would be a great support of the show too. So we appreciate that. And let us know if we can ever help, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind.